Hi, how are you? Consider a childhood memory, an event or action that comes to mind. It is you, isn't it? What exactly links you now to that kid in the memory? This touches on personal identity, the essence of what keeps someone as the same individual throughout life. Some explanations lean on biological continuity, being the same living being across time. Meanwhile, other explanations focus on psychological continuity, maintaining the same stream of consciousness over time. Personal identity often finds its roots in the psychological realm, tied to conscious experiences and recollections of these experiences. Let's delve into these psychological perspectives. At times, we may think I've changed so much, I'm not the person I used to be. Many of our traits evolve, lacking what's called qualitative identity over time. However, in the truest sense, each of us remains the same person from the past. Personal identity is about being what is known as numerically identical to our former selves, being that very same individual, a singular entity. To differentiate between qualitative and numerical identity, consider this assertion. John's book is identical to Bob's. If we refer to qualitative identity, it is feasible that John possesses one copy of the book while Bob has another. They are copies of the same book, sharing identical qualities, yet in terms of numerical identity, John and Bob share a single copy of the book. There's only one book present. Renowned philosopher John Locke famously contended that persons are conscious, intelligent beings capable of rational thought, reflection, and even self awareness. Look within yourself. You're precisely such a being. We all acknowledge that such beings are persons, but there remains ongoing debate about whether beings lacking these attributes can also be considered persons. Locke then put forth the idea that personal identity hinges on consciousness. He says to the extent that this consciousness extends back to any past action or thought, the identity of that person extends as well. This concept can be interpreted as a memory-based theory of personal identity. Person is the same individual as, say, some previous person B if and only if A recalls experiences that B had. In this context, A and B each represent a person without assuming whether they are the same person or distinct individuals. If A recollects experiences had by B, then A and B indeed refer to the same person according to this theory. As per the memory theory, you are identical to the child you remember being because you retain memories of their experiences. It's important to note that Locke's theory doesn't necessarily demand flawless memory, as people often forget past experiences. Sometimes we mistakenly recall events we never actually experienced. However, memory theory fails to differentiate between true and false memories. The idea goes, if your recollection matches your actual experience, it's true. If not, it's false. But this determination relies on personal identity to verify the memory's authenticity. Yet, the memory theory itself uses memory to define personal identity. This creates a circular reasoning issue for a memory theorist who employs such a distinction. Instead, it necessitates an unbroken sequence of evolving states of consciousness that links an individual to their past and future selves. Today's memory of yesterday intertwines with yesterday's memory of the day before, creating a chain of connected conscious memories. Locke's theory can also be seen as a psychological continuity theory of personal identity. Person A is the same as the past person B if and only if A is psychologically linked with B. Despite your psychological changes from childhood, new experiences, memories formed and forgotten, shifting preferences, and evolving interests, you remain the same person. These changes contribute to an ongoing stream of consciousness that bridges your childhood self to your present self. So, according to psychological continuity theory, this is why you are still the kid you remember being. This theory aligns with a key philosophical and mathematical concept, the transitivity of identity. For example, I'm the speaker in this video and the speaker is Asif Zaidi. This implies that I am Asif Zaidi due to the transitive nature of identity. In general, if identity applies between A and B and between B and C, then by transitivity, A is the same as C. Other familiar properties like being taller than or being a sibling are also transitive. If John is taller than Ron, then Ron is taller than Don, then John is taller than Don. If Don is a sibling of Ron and Ron is a sibling of John, then Don is also a sibling of John. This transitivity is evident in this scenario. Sam, once a high school student, recalls dropping an ice cream cone as a child. Later, in college, they recall their high school days but forget the incident with the ice cream. The fact that college-age Sam doesn't recall the ice cream event doesn't negate their involvement. Psychological continuity is also transitive. The high schoolers' continuity with their childhood self and the college students' continuity with their high school self combine. Thus, the college student and the child are psychologically continuous through their shared high school self. Over years of shifting yet uninterrupted psychological states, both remain as Sam. Some thought experiments uncover a fascinating implication of psychological theories: the potential for multiple individuals to share psychological continuity with a single past person. Consider the scenario. Joanne receives a grave diagnosis and faces an experimental solution, transferring Joanne's consciousness into another body. The process is conducted in two separate rooms, resulting in two individuals waking up, each believing they now have a new, healthy body. A backup plan involves duplicating Joanne's consciousness into a third body in a different room. So this case draws parallels with the brain transplant scenario mentioned earlier. We discussed that. So analogous issues emerge when contemplating an afterlife based on psychological continuity. Each patient shares psychological continuity with Joanne. The patient in room B appears to be Joanne, as does the patient in room C. However, if both are Joanne, the transitivity of identity implies that they are identical to each other. This presents a dilemma, as they can't be the same person, right? So if the patients possess differing characteristics or are located in distinct places, their numerical identity is compromised. Even according to psychological continuity theory, they can't be identical because they lack continuous psychological connection. These implications have led some thinkers to propose revised versions of psychological theories. So, what are those revised versions? Some theorists propose that personal identity hinges on maintaining psychological continuity with a single individual at most. In such a case, the contingency plan devised by the doctors proves problematic. It essentially leads to the end of Joanne's existence As a patient who maintains psychological continuity with 𝐸𝐸 becomes 𝐸𝐸 as long as the consciousness transfer occurs just once. This concept is known as the non-branching requirement, and it yields an unsettling outcome. Your identity's continuation through time relies on an external factor. For instance, if someone were to replicate you without any interaction between the original and the copy, you would cease to exist according to the non-branching viewpoint. On the other hand, alternative perspectives suggest that the continuity of interest holds more significance than numerical identity as we reflect on our past and future. What truly matters is whether our pursuits and concerns persist, irrespective of the number of individuals who share psychological continuity with us. Within this context, the doctor's backup strategy actually amplifies the chances of fulfilling 𝐸𝐸's interests. The presence of two distinct patients, both linked to the same past, effectively increases the likelihood that the pursuits and aspirations dear to 𝐸𝐸 will be carried forward. So, to sum it up, psychological theories hold ethical significance in their implications. They challenge the notion that we were ever unconscious embryos and that we could become patients devoid of consciousness, while, on life support, beings lacking consciousness can share a psychological connection with us. Thus, they can't be identified as us, as we are inherently conscious beings. These outcomes might steer us towards contemplating biological viewpoints on our identity, wherein we acknowledge our existence as embryos and our potential to exist as patients without a prospect of regaining consciousness. Furthermore, psychological theories offer a glimmer of hope for diverse afterlife possibilities, whether they be supernatural or technologically driven. They propose that an individual's survival extends as long as their consciousness endures. While these theories can show the actualization of such prospects, they encourage us to delve deeper into the exploration of ourselves, our past, and the paths our futures might take. So if I were to conclude, psychological theories of personal identity not only carry ethical implications by challenging our understanding of consciousness and connection, but also offer the potential for diverse afterlife possibilities. They prompt us to reflect more deeply on the nature of our existence, past, and potential futures. So with that, I leave you to reflect on your own existence, present, past, and future till we meet the next time. Thank you very much.